Attention all agents, this has never happened before. The forces of evil have consolidated behind a single mastermind. We're outgunned out there, and you have to be ready to handle anything that could possibly be thrown at you. Today we're going to break down all of the powerful henchmen you may encounter. This is it, the definitive henchman ranking video. Every single henchman in Evil Genius 2 ranked against each other. We're going to be moving pretty fast, so if one of these guys catches your eye, links down in the description for the full reviews that I have done on all of these guys. We're going to be looking at their stats, their abilities, the side story recruitment requirements. Let's get into it. Master Forger Carl Cafard is up first, and oh man, what a place to start. With a bad stat line, weak attack, and limited to a melee attack. He really needs to rely on his abilities to be useful because he is not worth much in a fight. So we go to his abilities and they are straight up broken. His cunning trap is supposed to place down a lethal trap that will kill any agent that walks into it, but from my testing, this is bugged and the agents rarely, if ever, fall for the trap. I'm unsure if the origin of the bug is just due to something in the background of what will cause the agents to walk into this trap, or if it is tied to the fact that right now techs are not repairing any items created by henchmen. Either way, the result is the same. This ability is terrible. And so we look at his second ability and we get nothing better. Imperfect Replica, Carl creates a fake loot trap that goes into your lair and is supposed to help you deter rogues from being able to sabotage your vaults. Now, if this worked, oh man, I would rank Carl so highly. If he was able to give that slap across the face to Synergy when she comes to steal your money, the most aggravating thing in the game, it would make me so happy. But it doesn't work. It doesn't do anything, guys. It literally does nothing. The rogues will take it, but it doesn't keep them from taking your money. It doesn't do damage to them. It doesn't slow them down. It is absolute garbage right now. And so when we come here over to the tier list, Carl, with absolutely nothing going for him, is going to land all the way at the bottom in the D tier. What makes Carl even worse is that on top of being useless, he actually has one of the more involved side stories to be able to unlock. You have to get the Declaration of Independence loot quest finished before you're able to get to Carl, and Carl is mutually exclusive with the next henchman we're going to look at, Clara Jones. At first look, our fedora-wearing friend here is in much the same boat as Carl, with a low stat line, weak attack, and being limited to a melee attack. Now, this limitation to the melee attack is infuriating because she has both the dialogue and animations showing a gun and talking about shooting people, but she chooses not to use it, favoring instead her wimpy little fists. It is mind-boggling that she does this, or at least that is the way that they have written her character. So again, we have a character that needs their abilities to pull them up out of the mire. What are we getting here? First off, she has airs and graces. Now, this ability is actually a workhorse ability. It targets Agent Resolve and Suspicion simultaneously, a potent combination for being able to get those agents to leave without any fuss, no trouble, no heat gain, no suspicion. Excellent able for handling agents out in the cover operation. That's good because her second ability is also broken. Man, guys, these first two henchmen we're hitting all the bugs. Knowledge of the Ancients, Clara is supposed to buff a trap, and she specifically, the text says she buffs the trap's accuracy. Now, my traps don't fail because they miss agents. They fail because the agents disable the traps. And having the buff, Knowledge of the Ancients, on a trap does not keep it from being disabled, which means from what I have found, it is completely useless. Even if this worked and helped improve your traps, it would be a very micro-intensive ability to have Clara go back and recast the buff on the traps after they have activated, and I really am not high on abilities that require a lot of micromanagement in general. So coming over here to the tier list, we have Clara with a single piece of her kit actually working. Airs and Graces is a pretty good ability, so she's going to land squarely above Carl here in the D tier. Closing out the discussion on these two mutually exclusive henchmen right here, Clara definitely has the edge. Her side story is also easier to unlock, and you get it earlier. It does bring up the point that there is an achievement which is broken in the game requiring you to recruit every single henchman on a single save. This is impossible because these two are mutually exclusive. Nobody has been able to achieve it on Steam yet. Hopefully we get a patch that fixes all of the bugs across these different characters. They're just not delivering on the potential of their kits, and I want to like them. I really enjoy their stereotypes and their personality, but they're just not all the way there right now. Magnolia Ming is next on our list. Dr. Magnolia Ming. She is definitely the kind of person who would correct you to use the proper title. She is actually a henchman who is really bringing it here. Finally, we get a great henchman to talk about. She has a solid stat line. Her damage is super high. She is limited to a melee attack, but what do you expect? She's actually bringing the pain in a fight beyond her abilities. But let's look at her abilities because they are amazing. Her whole kit is based around indiscriminately targeting any person. Her abilities do their effects on friend and foe alike, and it is up to you as the genius to activate them in situations where you are going to get the biggest benefit to yourself. I love this kit design. So we have Contagion. She unleashes a deadly cloud from her point of origin after a short cooldown, and these clouds go out and seek any nearby target. This is incredible. It does a lot of damage. I clocked it doing 150 damage to a single agent. I activated it in the middle of clumps of agents, and they actually they flee from the cloud, so it will split them up so you can handle them in smaller skirmishes. It also causes the agents who are coughing on the gas to be stunned for a short duration. So this is an amazing ability, bringing damage, crowd control, and splitting up clumps of agents. It does everything you want to be able to start off a combat encounter on the right foot. Her second ability, Cure, here is your recovery after that battle. It releases a microbe cloud that heals everyone within the cloud. So again, she's going to launch these clouds out. They're going to seek out random targets, and they can do a lot of healing. They can top off your team after you have had a difficult fight if you need to hop quickly into another encounter, or if in general you just want to be able to top your agents out without having to micro them back into the inner sanctum to heal up. It is bringing a lot of healing, and crucially, it will get henchmen who have been downed and normally have a long cooldown to be able to get back up to give them orders again. It can bring them back up and into working action. So between these abilities and just an amazing stat line, good damage, Ming is the full package, guys. She does come along only more towards the late game, but she definitely holds her own once you get her there. Great henchman to have, solid addition going all the way up to the A tier. Now our list is really starting to round itself out. We are looking at our very first starter henchman, Eli Barracuda Jr. Man, just saying his name makes me feel cool. He has a great stat line, good damage. By default, he is limited to a melee attack, but as we start to look at his abilities, we see that he is the whole package. Silver Revolver gives him a range attack and a damage buff, only for 6 shots, but that is plenty to be able to handle a combat encounter in Evil Genius 2. His second ability, Silver Tongue, damages agent resolve and increases Eli's own stats. This is an unprecedented ability, guys. This ability costs you nothing, hurts the agent's resolve, and regenerates Eli's morale, which he can then spend to use Silver Revolver. I absolutely love this character. He is my personal favorite. Coming over here to the ranking, we are putting him all the way up at the top. I'm doubling down on what I said in my previous video, that he is the best henchman to get, especially early on. I have played the game across a bunch of different saves. Some of them I have recruited Eli, some of them I haven't, but in the saves that I haven't, I just end up missing having Eli. I am giving weight to the fact that he has the best voice acting and some of the best idle animations. He takes out his gun, he kisses it, he polishes it. Just incredible. I love seeing him on screen every single time he is there, and he can get me out of any situation that possibly comes up. Eli is, by right of being my favorite, at the very top. Fugu Furukawa is next, a very divisive henchman in my opinion. She has a very low vitality stat, making her extremely fragile, and she only has a melee attack, so she has to put herself in harm's way to be able to deal damage, but oh man does she deal damage. She hits really, really hard. Looking into her abilities, she has, starting off with food poisoning. Fugu serves an agent a deadly dish that poisons them. This poison affects both their resolve and their health. It does a lot of damage, guys. This is a really dangerous thing to be serving out. It should not be allowed in the casino, okay? And the way that the casino operates, if you have already tagged the agents for distract, after Fugu serves them the food poisoning, she's going to enter that awkward, stalling conversation animation. So it locks the agent in place as he's losing resolve and is dying because of the poison. It is absolutely incredible. This is a great ability. It's even on a pretty low cooldown. Excellent, excellent way to be able to handle agents while they're out in the cover operation. Her second ability brings it in combat. Blowfish Explosion. She throws out an explosive blowfish, I suppose, and it creates a cloud of poisonous gas. This gas does a lot of damage. It catches an area of agents, and it also causes them to do that same coughing and choking on the gas kind of stunned animation, so it locks them in place for a little while. This is amazing. Throw it at the lead agent of a group that is coming down a corridor. All the other ones are going to be absolute idiots. Pile into the gas cloud. You're affecting all of them. It allows Fugu to run up into melee without taking any shots from range attacks, without any penalty there to having to close that gap. It allows your security forces to come in while they are choking on the gas. All around amazing addition to a combat encounter. This is where we get to the divisive part of Fugu, and this is a big sticking point for me, guys. This is going to impact her pretty heavily in the ranking. She brings unique schemes to the world stage. She has two types. One is sleeping with the fishes, which costs you nothing and reduces heat in the region that you use it. Absolutely excellent scheme there. Her second scheme, franchising opportunities, makes you money and costs you a splattering of different minion types. It is pretty decent in the early game. You're able to recruit Fugu out of her side story very early in the game. So at that point, this scheme is going to be pretty competitive. By the mid and late game, the generic schemes that are available from your upgraded criminal networks are going to be better, and they're especially going to be more efficient in terms of the minions that you spend, so they're going to fall off at that point. But these schemes are always going to be present, and the game makers, in their infinite stupidity, used this exact same indicators for Fugu schemes as the main quests and side story schemes. They are sized larger than the other schemes, they spin, and they have arrows pointing to them. This means that any time that you need to find a scheme on the world stage for advancing a new story, you have to mouse over every region where Fugu has populated all this spam of generic things to be able to find what you really need. You end up wasting a ton of time on the world stage when you have Fugu, and for me, I absolutely hate that. So it is penalizing Fugu in my tier list a lot. So coming over here to actually rank Fugu, she's gonna end up in B tier for me. I have used her for a fair amount of time in some of my saves and suffered through having that spam of schemes out on the world stage, and just within your base, she is amazing. But those schemes just cause you to waste so much time, and I absolutely hate that, so she's getting penalized a lot. I can see it being even more divisive for some other players, that she is gonna go all the way down into D. They're gonna avoid recruiting her at all because they just hate wasting time on the world stage. That is totally fair. Then there's going to be other players who actually don't mind at all. They enjoy getting to use those schemes on the world stage, and Fugu is going to go way up, A or S tier for them. So she ends up in the middle for me, but I hope that I've explained how she could be very different depending on your tolerance of using those schemes on the world stage. Full Metal Jackie is our next entry on the list, and if there was a poster child for more trouble than she's worth, this would be it. Her side story is incredibly convoluted. It only unlocks later in the game, and it requires you not to have advanced the side stories at all of Eli, Jubei, Dr. Ming, and Sir Daniel. These are 4 great henchmen that you have to completely leave untouched by the time that you get to the later game to be able to recruit Full Metal Jackie. These requirements are infuriating because the game does nothing to warn you that picking up any of these other great henchmen is actually disqualifying you from being able to recruit Full Metal Jackie later on down the line. So if you have managed to recruit Full Metal Jackie, maybe even had to start a new save just to be able to get to play with her like I did, what are you getting? Well, Jackie does bring it in combat. She has a great stat line, she does a lot of damage, and she has a range attack. This is amazing for firefights. And it gets even better when we start to look at her abilities. So with Fire Sail, she launches incendiary rounds. Her rounds do extra damage, and they have a chance of lighting targets on fire. This is going to knock them over and light them on fire, which is an additional piece of crowd control because the agents get locked in an animation of trying to pat themselves out, put themselves out. It's amazing. It amps up her damage a lot, and it really helps her take care of these combat situations. Her next ability, Handguns, is also pretty good. It has a small radius around Jackie where she throws out just a ton of pistols. It's like, you know, 4th of July in America, pretty much, or what Australians or Europeans think that 4th of July in America actually is. And so any of your muscle minions in the area will pick up pistols from this ability. It is awesome because there is no way to actually force your muscle minions to pick up the guns that you place out in the armory. I usually have a few muscle minions that are going around just using their fists, while there are weapons locked away in those cases that are free for the taking. They just don't choose to take them. And having your guards be able to use guns instead of their fists, it's a no-brainer, guys. It's way better. It's a little finicky because it has a bit of a cooldown and you have to be targeting the guards. There's some nuance here to using it, but overall it gives you a nice little damage buff to what your security forces are able to do. Coming over here to the tier list, I have to say that Jackie is suffering from the exact same detractor as Fugu, and for me is ending up right next to her in B tier. Jackie is also giving you unique schemes on the world stage. Now, Jackie's schemes are a little better than Fugu's. They give you more money, they're better scaled for the mid to late game point where you're actually going to be unlocking Full Metal Jackie, so that's good. But by the time you reach the real final level schemes, even the generic schemes are going to be better than what she is giving you access to. The downside here is that her schemes are even more varied than Fugu's. For Fugu, you just have to memorize the names of 2 schemes to know that they're the wrong one to be able to find the real quest that you want to do. Jackie's schemes have a bunch of different names, they have a bunch of different appearances, and they can appear anywhere in the world. You're going to waste even more time on the world stage with Jackie's schemes than you are with Fugu's. So that's the head-to-head comparison there. If you are someone that doesn't like this, that puts them both all the way down into D tier. If you don't mind using these schemes, or you actually want to see what they're like, actually get the benefit out of them, and you enjoy that, then Jackie's going to go up. Again, A or S tier. She is incredible in battle while you're at the base. But adding on to the schemes, the fact that her side story is so convoluted and it locks you out of getting these other henchmen until you have recruited Full Metal Jackie, it makes your early game really difficult to decide which henchmen you want to use, and you end up picking some of the, what I think are weaker henchmen to be able to augment your team. So it really does, in my opinion, feel like Jackie is more trouble than she is worth. But if you want to use her, this is what she is going to give you. Link in the description again for my video where I unlock her and do a full review of her abilities. Next up, we have Incendio, and oh man, I have a love-hate relationship with this guy. I do not like micromanagement. Henchmen, I like creating systems in the game that can keep on going on their own so that I can spend my attention elsewhere, and I'll come back if there's a big, high-level, critical decision that needs to be made. And Incendio plays right into that as part of his kit in a very unique way. He is labeled as a deception henchman, he has the purple around his border, and more than any of the other henchmen, he prioritizes spending time in the cover operation. When you have marked agents for distraction, he goes up to them and he has a different conversation with them than any of the other henchmen. It shows him hypnotizing the agent, and he does resolve damage and damages their skill. Now, you can recruit him very early on in the story. This is before you get the later level items and the higher level deception minions to augment that cover operation. So he is great to get and then just let loose in the cover operation to sabotage those early agents that are trying to come in and investigate, just turning them away before they even get through those casino doors into your real operation. And his abilities even play into this even more. Magic Trick gives him an AoE resolve damage ability. He channels, he attracts agents in, and then at the end of his channel, he damages all of their resolve. This is incredible. It can hit the resolve of all of the agents in a single group that are coming to your casino. You can do it right off the bat as soon as they come off the boat. It is so, so good. And then his second ability, Misdirection, is again very unique. This character has probably the most unique design compared to any of the other henchmen that you can get. Misdirection is just a toggle. You can have it on or off, and it is free. No other ability is like this. Its effect is that he hides himself from tourists, ignoring any conversations with them. So the tourists are meant to be annoying in the game. If your henchmen get caught talking to the tourists, then you cannot give them direct orders until that conversation is done. And so because Incendio spends so much time in the casino, it is great that they gave him this ability so that if you really do need to give him orders, get him somewhere else in the base or to do something important, you can bring this on and he'll be able to rush in to help you without any delay of getting caught talking to the tourists. So it's fine, like it's important to have the way that they have programmed the rest of him to work, but it's not giving you a really enormous advantage. Just, you know, explaining everything that we're working with here. Where I really have issue with Incendio is when he gets into combat. This guy is the fire wizard that doesn't ask the DM how big the room is before casting Fireball. He does area of effect damage with his basic attack. He holds up a card and he throws out literally a fireball. It explodes on target and does damage to everyone around. It will knock down anyone around the target. And it also damages not just characters, but items. This is infuriating if he gets caught in combat in, say, the casino, where he spends most of his time. He is going to damage everything around that target, and he can wipe out items incredibly quickly. with the way the game is set up, the game will tell you, oh, so helpfully, that an item has been destroyed, but it does not allow you just to say, replace item. Yes, I want to replace that item. Obviously, I built these items, I want them there. If they get destroyed, just let me press a single button to get them back. But no, you have to go back through the build menu, try and remember in certain cases what it was that got destroyed, and then replace it in the same location if you really wanted it there. Incendio's damage also will affect your own minions. So if he gets caught into a combat encounter where you have a lot of minions engaged around agents in melee, he's going to kill off so many of your own guys. It is going to be an absolute massacre. Incendio doesn't care who he's hitting. He just enjoys throwing fireballs and watching the carnage. Because of that, I have a hard time ranking Incendio because there's pieces of his kit that I absolutely love, and then there are pieces that drive me crazy. And so because of that, he's ending up here in the middle. If they streamlined the way that the collateral damage was done and that you could just automatically replace destroyed items, I would rate him a lot higher, but that is not the case. The ideal situation for him is he's facing off against this clump of agents in an empty corridor, and then in that case, he can practically stun lock the entire group and take them out on his own. So he has incredibly high highs, but the lows of I've just seen him kill like 20 to 30 of my own minions in a combat encounter, and then replacing them and cleaning up the bodies takes like half an hour. It just wastes my life away, and I hate that. So it's a very mixed bag with Incendio, and it's very hard to control him. You have to micromanage him a lot around combat encounters to decide if you want him contributing or not. So that's why he's ending up here in the middle in B tier. Okay, now we are going to hit all the rest of the starter henchmen in quick succession, starting out with Iris here. Iris was the very first henchman I recruited, and she is fantastic. She has really high health, she has a range attack, decent damage. Iris is the only true tank out of all of the henchmen. If you want a tank character to round out your team, Iris is the place to look, and that is because of her abilities. So let's get into those. Reroute power allows her to throw up a shield barrier. She reduces incoming damage and rapidly heals herself. This means that Iris is great to put first on the scene. She can engage those agents and then throw up the shield to be able to outlast the agents while help arrives. It is really, really good to have her there as a frontline character. Her heal is significant here. Her damage reduction is also significant, and stacking with her already high vitality makes her incredibly durable. She completely perfects this role as the first on the scene, the tank, with her next ability, Security Network Link. So she throws up an enormous radius and taps into your security network, becoming one of your cameras. Now, this view of the camera through Iris is limited by line of sight, but the real value that I've seen here is that if you have a set of agents and they are engaged in an area where you do not have your security network up otherwise, Iris can go there, you tap Security Network Link, it flashes, and then it signals all the guards at your advanced guard table that they are needed here in the lair somewhere. And then they will all come running. You can turn Security Network Link off immediately, basically. You've still notified the guards. And then Iris can keep the agents busy, focusing all their attacks on her. She throws up reroute power, waiting for the guards to arrive. Your security forces come, and then you just roll over that combat encounter. Iris is an amazing antivirus program of sorts for your security system. As we come over here into the ranking area, she is landing squarely in A tier. She is excellent. I have no complaints about her. The only thing holding her back from being S tier is that her actual damage is on the lower side. She does have a range attack, which means that she is useful pretty much in any kind of combat situation. She can always make herself useful, but it's not putting her all the way over the top like the characters that I want to reserve S tier for. So Iris, you're gonna have no regrets recruiting this henchman. Janet Bombe is next on the list, and if this is considered a test, then she bombs it. Janet is absolutely terrible. She is extremely fragile, she has low damage, and she's limited to a melee attack. She needs these abilities to be good. She's focused around dealing with agents outside of combat. So what are these abilities? We have remote detonation. She is going to hack into the agent's weapon system, and it will then damage the agent based on the weapon they have, and it will disable them being able to use that weapon. This is decent for being able to lower the damage output of a single agent. It functions similar to a trap. It does only a little bit of damage, but it does not aggro the agents to attack your minions or Janet while using it. So it makes her kind of a remote trap deployment system, and it moderately decreases that agent's damage output. This is just so micro intensive, and the damage it does is really little, and then the benefit of lowering that agent's damage output is also fairly minuscule that I'm just not really high on it. If you enjoy messing with agents and you just think that you want to see these funny animations, like the animation for this is probably one of the most hilarious things, followed closely by Scramble Evidence. She hacks the agent's data pads for any evidence that they have found, and it will reduce their suspicion. So this is similar to what Clara Jones was bringing damaging agent suspicion, except this only hits their suspicion. It does not also hit their resolve. So you have the problem of if you have not also reduced that agent's resolve, they will just go right back into your lair and regather that evidence. So again, Janet here, a very micro-intensive ability to use to keep on reducing that agent suspicion, and it needs to be paired with a strong cover operation or other things that are running to be able to hit that agent resolve and keep them from just going back into your lair. But when you're at the point of having all of those systems together, then you're probably turning the basic investigators away before they even get to a point where they can gather any evidence at all, or you have a security system strong enough to just kill them if they get that evidence. So in that regard, like, Janet is really struggling to find her correct place. She's here for the role players and the players who just want to see these hilarious animations of her messing with the dumb agents. So for me, I don't enjoy that kind of micro. It was funny watching the animations a few times, but then it gets super repetitive too. So Janet's ending up in C tier here, being worthless in a fight and then having pretty weak abilities is not doing her any favors. Only 2 henchmen left, and we are looking at Jubei. I know a lot of people were waiting for this guy. Where is he gonna go? Well, Jubei is amazing. He has a great stat line. He does good damage. He is limited to a melee attack, but he totally makes up with that with his abilities. Flow gives him increased damage per attack. It makes his damage go absolutely insane. It turns him into a security force of his own, and paired with Windwalk just puts him way over the top. Windwalk makes Jubei appear instantly at the tip of your cursor. You can engage him exactly when you need him, where you want him. The only things keeping him out of this is if he's on stairs. The old man's weakness. And I think that if he's in a conversation with tourists in the casino, he will also be kept from doing Windwalk. I haven't managed to test that, but Jubei S tier easy. Like, he is the one-man army, one-stop shop for being able to defeat super agents, any kind of combat encounter. You put Jubei in there and you are on the winning side. This guy, absolutely amazing. If this list became who wins in a fight, then Jubei is above everybody else. Eli's gonna fall off and Jubei is gonna stand alone at the very top. And this list is, for me, is not just who wins in a fight. I'm looking at other aspects as well. So that's why he's sharing S tier right now with Eli, my personal favorite character. But Jubei here, if you didn't get him as your starter henchman, seriously consider going back for his side story. You will not regret it. Our final entry is Sir Daniel, an incredible combat character. He has a good stat line. He has a long range attack. It does a bunch of damage, and he has a really good attack speed. This guy just pumps out. His DPS is so high, even before we look at his abilities, and his abilities are pretty solid. Camouflage here, he dons his camouflage, he puts a few leaves in his hat, and then he's invisible to the agents, so they will not target him. And his next attack does sneak attack damage. He gets bonus damage on that next auto attack. This is pretty easy to use if he's in a combat encounter. You can just pop it on and off so that you get that immediate damage buff. The situation where you want him to be camouflaged from enemy agents is a little bit more convoluted. I don't really see you getting much use out of that, though I can see a few situations where that's going to come in handy. The real benefit here is just that damage buff on a single range attack, so a minor piece, but it is nice to have because he is so combat oriented. His next ability, Trap, he lays down a bear trap in one of your corridors. This is what Carl wanted his trap to be. From my testing, Sir Daniel's traps seem to work much more consistently, and instead of being lethal, they capture enemies. It automatically destroys whatever agent steps in its health and skill, and it marks them for capture, and it locks them in place. This ability is really good to be able to catch those agents and bring them into your prison. Sir Daniel is amazing overall. Coming here to the tier list, we're gonna lock him up into A to round out that A tier. Always someone that you want firing on the back line, supporting your security forces. He is really great. Important to note, Sir Daniel's side story requires you to beat every single super agent in succession. If you're not prepared for this, that is quite a challenge. Or if you have advanced the game pretty significantly, you might be looking at actually defeating super agents through finishing their side story. Don't do that if you want to recruit Sir Daniel, otherwise you're going to be missing out on the ability to pick up this awesome character. Here it is, the ultimate breakdown of all of the henchmen in Evil Genius 2, breaking them into tiers. Hopefully I explained well enough why I have put the different henchmen into their different tiers. If any of these guys caught your interest, then check down in the description for the links to my videos where I do full reviews on all of them, playing through their side stories, showing more gameplay, breaking down their abilities even more. And I hope that you don't feel like to beat the game, you need to recruit a team of only the top tier henchmen. You don't. I definitely recommend picking up a few henchmen out of those tiers to kind of form the backbone of your base's defenses, but you can make any of these guys work. At the end of the day, you're the genius who's putting together the team. You can pick any henchman if they offer, even that one piece that is something you really want to incorporate for how you're going to make it through the game, then go for it. These guys, when you're building a full team, can all be useful, with the exception of Carl, who is totally broken. Stay away from Carl until he gets patched, guys. I'm sorry, Carl. I want to like you, but it just don't work right now. That's how it is. Leave a like if this video breakdown was useful to you, or you enjoyed just seeing what all the different henchmen are. Throw down in the comments where you disagree with me, and please show a why so that people looking through, trying to evaluate what henchmen they want to recruit can get all the information, especially if I missed anything important or that something has been different since I got to test them. I would love to hear about that in the comments as well, and subscribe if you want to see more from me. Thank you guys, and have a good one.